Boom, 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 boom.
It's the Everyone Gets a Trophy football podcast presented by the Yuppie Yinzer, episode 3. We're getting settled in. We've done the AFC East, NFC East. However you're listening, thank you. We're on iTunes. We're on YouTube. Links can be found at theyuppieYinzer.com. If you're not already doing so on Twitter, follow us at Trophy Podcast. Follow super producer Howard. He makes this all possible at NFL_DVOA_picks. This is going to be a big episode. Very excited to bring it to you. You know, we've always been dense. We've always had a ton of information. Maybe I need to slow down and not give it to you as fast. Let everyone absorb it. But this is the big one. We're not going to be that same bitch prediction show you get everywhere else. NFC North time. We're going to flip it on its head. We're going to do things a little bit differently. Very excited to bring it to you. A lot of good information out there. Join the conversation on Twitter. Hit up the comment section I mentioned on the internet. Right now we're on YouTube. I'll know we finally made it once that YouTube comment section becomes an absolute cesspool. It's been pretty good right now. So comment, tell me what you like, tell me what you dislike. If you have any questions, we'll do a full round table at the end of our division previews. Without further ado, let's kick it off. Up first, the Green Bay Packers. Coming off a losing season, they went 7-9, but the silver lining here served as a wake-up call. Now they realize they can't solely rely on Aaron Rodgers just carrying them to the playoffs. No surprise here, the story going into the season is going to be the return of Aaron Rodgers. Entering his age 35 season, Aaron Rodgers returns to Green Bay coming off his second broken collarbone in 5 years, the first back in 2013. The importance of Aaron Rodgers can't be stated enough. We know how good he is. Fun fact, 2017, Aaron Rodgers still able to throw more touchdowns than Brett Hundley. Even though Brett started 9 games, played in 10, Aaron still had more touchdown passes. If you go back to 2016, this is a team that relies on Aaron Rodgers more than any other one player. Green Bay threw 66% of its snaps in 2016, leading the NFL. So who is calling the shots and surrounding Aaron with all these weapons? Who's surrounding with the protection? Who's putting the defense on the field? General Manager Ted Thompson, out. He's going to be moved upstairs to an advisory role, still with Green Bay, just not as the GM. Thompson was known for building talent through the draft almost to a fault because he wouldn't look outside the organization for talent. Their biggest free agent acquisitions in his tenure were both tight ends Martellus Bennett and Jared Cook. Neither, of course, worked out for the Packers and made the impact needed. So Ted Thompson's out. Brian Gutekunst is in. His friends call him Goody, so you know what? We're going to call him Goody. He's been with the Packers franchise since 1998, quite a long time. His most recent jobs, 2012, 2015, Director of College Scouting. For 2016 and 17, he was the Director of Player Personnel. So it all appears he's been groomed for this position for a while. He took over for the draft, had plenty of draft picks to make his mark, 11 draft picks to be exact. 2018 saw Brian take all 11 picks and make the most of them. Brought in 2 defensive backs in the first and second round. Added 3 wide receivers, 2 linebackers, a punter, strangely enough, even a long snapper. He also worked outside the mold Ted Thompson left behind in the office and did his best to make a splash this time around in free agency. He made an offer to Bears cornerback Kyle Fuller, but the Bears matched it. Fuller stayed put. Goody did, however, successfully sign and bring in Jimmy Graham, Muhammad Wilkerson, and Tremont Williams. We'll get to all of them in a minute with each position group, but first we need to address Aaron Rodgers' contract situation. Probably the first thing on Goody's list as well. Rodgers may very well end up being the NFL's first $200 million man, and of course he deserves every penny. However, in this age of the salary cap, you have to wonder what Rodgers' intended goals are. He wants to play until he's 40, yes, but his peers at quarterback started taking less money when they hit these mid-30s, guys like Drew Brees, Peyton Manning, Tom Brady. They all took team-friendly deals late in their careers so the team could build a winner around them. So what are Aaron Rodgers' goals? Well, right now all signs point to he wants the cheddar. No Packer fans, I'm not talking about the cheese. Rodgers made the playoffs every year of his starting career except for his first and last year. He's been in the NFC Championship game 2 times in 7 years, but has yet to make an appearance in the Super Bowl since his win over the Steelers in 2010. The bottom line though, Aaron Rodgers can't do it all by himself. He needs help, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Over the past 2 years, the Packers are 14-2 versus offenses that are outside the top 12, meaning they've beaten bad offensive teams. However, any offense that's finished inside the top 12 on offense, Green Bay's record 2-8 against. Of course, Aaron Rodgers isn't playing on the defensive side of the ball, so that's not on him, but certainly an area to improve if the Packers want to return to the promised land in 2018. Taking a look at the coaches, Mike McCarthy's made some changes. They fired offensive coordinator Edgar Bennett, replaced him with a familiar face Joe Philbin. He spent the past 2 seasons with the Indianapolis Colts as the assistant head coach and offensive line coach. Before that, he was the head coach of Miami Dolphins, where he never reached the postseason, only had a record of 24-28. Not all bad for Joe, though. He's returning to Green Bay, where he had his most success. He takes back the reins as offensive coordinator, the position he held when Green Bay went to the Super Bowl in 2010. Flip over to defense real quick. Defensive coordinator Dom Capers is out. Mike Pettin is in. Pettin's been out of football for the last 2 years. His last coaching position was with Cleveland. He was the head coach of the Browns from 2014 to 2015. He had a lot more success as a defensive coordinator, though. 2013 with the Bills, but before that, he was a great defensive coordinator from 2009 to 2012. He came into the league as an assistant for the Ravens after a successful high school coaching career. Born into football, with his dad creating a high school football dynasty in eastern Pennsylvania with Central Bucks West. You can actually see him and his father in an ESPN documentary titled The Last Game if you have any interest. Moving on to player personnel, we know quarterback. Let's see who else is on this offense. Starting with running back, we have Jamal Williams, who looks to be the front runner for snaps on the Packers. He does have competition, though, in Ty Montgomery and Aaron Jones. Jamal Williams led the Packers in rushes in the red zone last year with 21 carries and 4 touchdowns. He also led the team in rushing with 556 yards on 153 carries. An okay receiving threat, can play third down. He only caught 25 balls for 262 yards last year. Big competitor here is Ty Montgomery, who could also start. Ty, of course, was that converted wide receiver a few years back. Last year, 71 carries, 273 yards, and 23 catches for 173 yards. Out of all the running backs, Aaron Jones looks like the best pure running back of the bunch. Again, this guy's not a big receiving threat, but he did rush for 448 yards on 81 carries and 4 touchdowns. Luckily, Rodgers does have some talent in the backfield. Moving out to wide receiver, he did lose best friend Jordy Nelson. Jordy Nelson's production did drop off last year, but of course, Brett Hundley was throwing the ball to him. And unfortunately, maybe for Aaron, bad news out of Raiders camp. They say Jordan looks like a guy in his 20s. Certainly is going to miss the favorite target throughout his career. Together, they combined for 127.9 passer rating on 682 attempts. Going into 2018, the thoughts Jordy may be more of a second receiver, potentially why the Packers moved on, other than age. Very talented wide receiver in Devontae Adams. Adams led the team in red zone targets last year with 23. Very good year despite not having Aaron for a majority of it. Other side of the ball, or the slot, we have Randall Cobb. Cobb did have a down year last year, not as quick with his cuts. Looked a bit old, but he's only 27, so the potential's there. Rest of the receiving core, however, young. It took 3 receivers in this year's draft to add to a group of young receivers they already had. D'Angelo Yancey, 5th round in 2017. Geronimo Allison was an undrafted free agent who showed some signs for Aaron Rodgers. 4th rounder this year, Jamon Moore out of Missouri. He's been running with the first team in camp. Trevor Davis, 5th rounder in 2016. Marcus Valdez-Scantling was a 5th rounder this year out of South Florida. Here's a name for you, Equanimeous St. Brown, a 6th rounder out of Notre Dame. Again, outside of Cobb and Adams, a lot of questions with a young group in 2018. A ton of size with these rookies and sophomores, but there's questions all over the place. Hopefully, someone steps up so Aaron can have some more success in 2018. We're not here to rip on Aaron Rodgers, but full disclosure, it's important to point out Rodgers has been dinking and dunking his way down the field for the last 3 years. According to ESPN Stats and Information, going back 2009 to 2014, Aaron Rodgers aired the ball out. All passes, he led the league in yards per attempt. More recently, however, from 2015 to 17, he ranked 25th of all passers in yards per attempt. He does, however, still have, quote, it. If you look at third down and fourth quarter, kind of more pressing situations, Aaron Rodgers 4th overall in the last 3 years on third down and 9th overall in the fourth quarter overtime. So he has the ability. We'll see how that works. It's just not a sustainable offense to continue to move the ball down the field 5 yards at a time. So one of these younger guys needs to step up, become a solid deep threat for Aaron, and hopefully get those numbers up. Speaking of targets, big signing for the Packers added Jimmy Graham, who will certainly help in the red zone. Maybe not as dominant between the 20s, but in the red zone, he's a big-time target. The Packers do love 11 personnel. 1 running back, 1 tight end. If you look at all Aaron's throws, 91% of them came out of the 11 personnel. Going to the tight end, negative 53.5 DVO rating. A lot of opportunity for Jimmy to come in and really help that unit out. Mercedes Lewis and Lance Kendricks are also on the team, so there's some veteran depth there. But hopefully Jimmy Graham creates an opportunity to to use the tight end more efficiently than the Packers have in the past. Last piece of this offense, the offensive line. Two sure things at tackle. Pro Football Focus ranks them number 9 going in 2018. They were bit by injuries last year. Corey Linsley at center was the only offensive lineman who started all 16 games. The big names here, Brian Bulaga coming back off his second ACL tear. David Bakhtiari, he graded out as the best left tackle in the game, so Aaron's blind side is safe. For a team that loves to throw the ball, Aaron does get it out quick. So that'll certainly make things easier for this offensive line moving forward. Flipping over to defense, the Packers continuing to run that 3-4 defensive scheme. They do have the best 3-4 defensive line in football. So for teams that line up with 3 down linemen and 4 linebackers, we're talking about the best front 3 in the game. Mike Daniels, about as dominant as it gets in the middle. They added Kenny Clark coming off career year. Both graded out as an 87. Elite defensive line here. Added Mo Wilkerson on a 1-year prove-it deal. We saw how great he was in New York before he got paid. After getting paid, maybe a little bit of decline. There were some effort issues. He was late to meetings. But this 1-year prove-it deal could be the spark Mo needs to become that dominant player we've seen in the past. Sliding back to linebacker. Outside linebacker, Clay Matthews and Nick Perry. They graded out as 83.4 and 80.5 respectively. They're 2 very good pass rushers, but unfortunately this isn't a deep unit, so these guys will need to be healthy for the D to be at its best. We're really excited about Jake Ryan, inside linebacker. Unfortunately, he's torn his ACL. He's going to miss the year. Blake Martinez graded out as an 80.2, another above average linebacker. He's still around. They drafted Oren Burks in the 3rd round out of Vanderbilt. His story, he's a converted safety, played a little hybrid junior year before he moved solely to inside linebacker in his senior season. After the draft, comment was they wanted to use him inside so Clay could stay outside. If Oren Burks makes the jump, could have a solid front 7, but again, not a lot of depth here. We've talked about other teams, specifically on the defensive line, for the Redskins and Eagles, rotating players, attacking quarterbacks. Not necessarily that same kind of depth here that we know of yet. Guys could step up, of course, but right now, if this defense needs to play healthy, it needs really its top 7 guys to be on the field a lot. Not ideal. Back in the secondary, defensive back Tremont Williams returns to Green Bay after a stint in Arizona. Unfortunately, 35 years old, but he's familiar with the team. Hopefully he can transition into Pettine's defense. Last year, he was still the number 9 corner at 34 years old. Will he take a step back? We'll see. If not, definitely a surefire corner. Opposite of him, Kevin King's back after flashing some potential in his rookie year. 6'3", a big guy. Can he take the next step? They also added in the draft Jair Alexander in the 1st round out of Louisville, and in the 2nd round grabbed Josh Jackson from Iowa. Both graded out well in college. Certainly some depth there with those 4 guys. We'll see how that plays out. Safety Josh Jones played a lot of dollar/dime safety, played in the box, saw some time at linebacker in 2017. It'll be either him or Kendall Bryce at safety. Morgan Burnett's gone, so it's a younger secondary than last year. One of these guys is going to be playing next to Clinton Dix, a former 1st rounder out of Alabama. Average 2017, but, again, has that talent. Looking at the secondary as a whole, they have a snap-weighted age under 25 years old. Since 2010, 25 defenses have had a secondary with a snap-weighted average of 25 or less. None have won a Super Bowl. The closest was the 2013 Seahawks with a snap-weighted average of 25.2. That's the Legion of Boom. Legendary defense. So if the Packers do have Super Bowl aspirations in 2018, this young secondary is going to need to be legendary. The over-under set at 10. To be honest, it's a perfect number. We have them marked at 10 and 6. It's really tough for a team with a young secondary to win, especially with that lack of depth. But let's face it, as long as Aaron Rodgers is under center, they always have the chance to win. If they do sneak into the playoffs, we've got them as a wild card team. Hopefully they have better luck than they've seen in the past. Some of the worst playoff luck. If you go back to 2016, there's that big catch and run by Larry Fitzgerald right before the shuffle pass walk-off. Go to 2015, there's the NFC Championship, another walk-off, this time Jermaine Kearse. And in 2010, they had that shootout again with the Cardinals. Aaron Rodgers strip sack, walk-off loss. Like I mentioned, not great luck, but management's realized they can't win just with Aaron Rodgers. They've given him some weapons on both sides of the ball. We'll see if these pieces come together. Aaron stays healthy, defense stays healthy. We could see a 10-6 team in 2018. On to the next one. Next, taking a look at Bears. Bears went 5-11 in 2017, and it marked the end of an ugly John Fox era, which saw the Bears go 14-34 over 34 seasons. GM Ryan Pace is still around, who we like a lot. The only issue right now at the time of recording is signing first-round pick Roquan Smith. Naturally, he's holding out over money, but what's interesting, as first reported by the Chicago Tribune, Smith, quote, wanted language in his contract to protect him from losing guaranteed money if he was suspended as part of the NFL's new helmet contract rule. There you have it. We expected to see teams screwed by this rule all season. It appears this is our first example before Smith even suits up. Additionally, he, quote, would like additional protections from his money if he were to be suspended for non-football reasons, such as off-field issues. Interesting. I can't remember a time when a player was negotiating for the right to be a scumbag off the field. We could see an interesting precedent set here. In a time when rookie contracts are scaled based on draft pick, I guess the new norm here is just going to be for lawyers fight for their client just in case they happen to go full Ray Rice. Should be noted these are the same agents who 2 years ago represented Joey Bosa when he held all the way until August 29th. His holdout was due based on how the language spelled out bonus deferment, so a little bit different. These agents do have a way of holding out their client. We'll see how quick Roquan gets on the field. The sooner, the better. The Bears add an offensive mind and head coach Matt Nagy, who takes the team over in 2018. Comes over from the Kansas City Chiefs, much like Doug Peterson when he was Andy Reid's offensive coordinator, did not call the plays. That all changed, however, Week 13 last season when the slumping Chiefs turned to Nagy to call plays and surge to the playoffs. Of course, there is that one hiccup at the end of the year, blowing the lead in Tennessee in the playoffs, but the future is bright for the Bears. At offensive coordinator, Matt Nagy brings in Mark Helfrich. Mark was Chip Kelly's protege who carried over the Oregon Ducks when Chip went to the NFL and took the Ducks to a national championship. Another similarity to Doug Peterson, who evolved the RPOs in Chip's playbook and made them a key piece of the Eagles' Super Bowl run. Nagy's a big fan of the RPO, added a guy with Chip Kelly pedigree to continue to evolve the NFL's newest trend. Big move Matt Nagy made was keeping Vic Fangio, who had a great defense last season for the Bears despite all the injuries. We'll get into that later, but we like keeping Vic Fangio for the Bears in 2018. Moving on to personnel, at quarterback we have Mitch Trubisky. That's right, people. Back to being Mitch after a year spent as Mitchell. Are we looking at a sophomore slump? Hell no, more like a sophomore jump. Quarterbacks drafted in the top 15 from 2012 to 2016, there was 8 of them. 7 of those 8 improved in year 2, the exception being RG3, whose lack of improvement can be traced back to the injury. Those 7 went on to prove both their own stats and the team's overall win-loss record. If you factor out Andrew Luck, of course, who had a strong rookie season, the aforementioned RG3, the remaining 6 quarterbacks, with 37 and 59 in their rookie year, jumped to 63 and 44 in their sophomore season. The big question for everybody is, will we see the same kind of growth from Trubisky that we saw from Jared Goff in 2017? If you remember back, both had mediocre, old-school head coaches in their rookie seasons, fired, replaced by the young, hip, offensive-minded coach. Copy that same template. Could be a good year for Trubisky and the Bears. Darryl Loggins is out as offensive coordinator. As we mentioned on the Dolphins preview, where he's now offensive coordinator, Loggins was one of the most predictable play callers last season. Moving on from Loggins alone is going to help Trubisky. We'll see how he continues to grow. In the quarterback room, backing up Trubisky, the Bears bring in Chase Daniel and Tyler Bray. These are 2 guys who worked with Nagy in the past. They know the offense. They can help bring Trubisky along. If you watch college football, of course, you know Mark Helfrich knows a thing or two about the shotgun. Nagy loves the shotgun. Mitch Trubisky played 98% of his college plays in the shotgun, so he's going to return to his comfort zone after a rookie season that only saw him in shotgun on 50% of the snaps. As I mentioned, offensive coordinator last year, Loggins, was very predictable. 80% of the time he was in shotgun, he was passing. 76% of the time he was under center, he was running. A little bit more variety in the offense for 2018 will make the defense's job that much harder in 2018. Mitch still has a lot to prove. Last year, the Bears only threw the ball 473 times, good for dead last in the league. I love the Nagy-Helfrich-Trubisky combo. I expect improvement in year 2. In the backfield, Jordan Howard's back. Great year, even though he ran in that predictable offense. Faced one of the top 5 most difficult run defense schedule last year, still had solid numbers. Fun fact, out of the shotgun, he averaged 6.4 yards per carry, which was up 2.4 yards from under center. So that's going to make another guy happy to see more shotgun in 2018. They had the lightning thunder combo with Tyreek Cohen also there. Super fast, great at catching passes out of the backfield. He's going to need to work on his pass blocking. Not a big guy, but he is fast and elusive. Anytime he has the ball in his hands, it's a highlight reel. Solid lightning thunder combo there. Outside, big receiver added. Allen Robinson comes over from the Jaguars, signs a 3-year, $42 million deal after he missed all year with a torn ACL suffered in week 1. Back to 2015, 1,400 receiving yards with 14 TDs. The Bears are hoping that's the guy they signed. In 2017, the number 1 target in the red zone was running back Tyreek Cohen with 10 targets. The Bears will certainly welcome this big receiver. Also added Taylor Turbo Gabriel from the Falcons. That's right, nicknamed Turbo. We're going to call him Turbo Gabriel from here on out. Ran a 4.27 40 coming into the NFL. For comparison's sakes, Tyreek Hill ran a 4.24 40. Matt Nagy may have found his utility burner. The Bears drafted Anthony Miller out of Memphis in the second round. Drawing comparisons to Odell Beckham and Antonio Brown, he has tremendous talent, huge hands. He can play the slot position immediately. Watched a lot of college football last year. Miller always stuck out of college. He's a big-time playmaker. In my opinion, could have a breakout rookie season like we saw Juju Smith-Schuster have last year. If that's not enough for you, the Bears still have Kevin White. Remember him? 2015 first-round pick. Health's been an issue those first few years, but he's getting that usual OTA, that camp hype. New story every other day. He's healthy for now. We'll see if that potential comes to fruition. Maybe another target for this offense. The Bears also signed Trey Burton from the Eagles for 4 years, $32 million. Signed him to catch the ball, not throw it. He showed promise. He's a fast tight end, great route runner. One more welcome target for Trubisky. Adam Shaheen will back him up. 2016, they got him in the second round. Absolute monster, 6'6", 278 pounds. Doing his best Gronk impressions this year in camp. He could hopefully be another big-time target for Trubisky. Offensive line ranked number 13 by Pro Football Focus going into 2018. It's a great run blocking line. They're going to need to replace Josh Sitton, who's now a Dolphin. They drafted James Daniels out of Iowa in the second round. A mean guy who gets in your face, very well could replace Sitton. Tons of talent here. Charles Leno returns at left tackle, an above-average blindside blocker. Cody Whithair's back at center. He was below average last year. Kyle Long at right guard, below average. Bobby Massey at right tackle, below average. Whitehair was a disappointing sophomore season last year, but he did have some potential in his rookie season. Graded out 85.9 as a rookie. Very solid numbers. Fell to 74.2 as a sophomore. If he can get back to that 85.9 grade, the offensive line might be in decent shape. Hopping over to defense, we'll talk about the pass rush first. That's the weakest link of this Bears defense. Pro Football Focus ranks him at number 30. Leonard Floyd returns. He's missed 10 games over the last 2 years. The 9th overall pick in 2016 is entering a make or break season. Signed Aaron Lynch from the 49ers. He worked under Vic Fangio and saw success in his rookie season. We could see him come in a nickel and passing situation. That reunion could help the pass rush. Moving inside, Akeem Hicks came over from the Patriots a few years ago. He's done nothing but create havoc for the Bears, a top 3-4 lineman. Joined by Eddie Goldman, 334-pound nose tackle. Average grade, but he's a large guy that creates large space in the 3-4 defense. That's huge, no pun intended. Moving back to linebacker, like we mentioned, first round pick Roquan Smith continues to hold out. This guy needs to get into camp and learn the defense. He's expected to be the signal caller, could be the leader of the defense for the next 10 years. He was the best inside linebacker in the draft, has the star power. He may be a tad undersized, but Vic Fangio also had a guy by the name of Patrick Willis with the same size and saw some success. Maybe you've heard of him. Danny Trevathan comes over from that Broncos Super Bowl team. He has the ability to be a game changer and a leader. You mix him with Roquan Smith, you got a fantastic inside linebacking core for this team. Could be one of the top linebacking cores in the NFL. Back at defensive backs, ranked 16 going into 2018. Big story here was they were able to keep Kyle Fuller after matching the Packers' offer. Graded out as an 84.3 in a breakout 2017, and the Bears rewarded him with $56 million, and he's worth every penny. Opposite of him is Prince Amukamara, graded out as 81.3. Still 29 years old, but he's had health issues. He misses games, but he doesn't miss tackles. He lines them up, he gets the receiver down. Big time corner out there. Only one time in his career has he played all 16 games in a regular season. If he can stay healthy, solidifies this defense that much more. Bryce Callahan returns as nickel corner, rated an 82.9. This 1-2-3 punch at defensive back could absolutely shut down offenses if they're healthy, especially if they get a little help from up front pressuring the quarterback. We could be talking about a top 10 secondary. Behind them, fantastic safety Adrian Amos, 92.0 grade in 2017. A budding star, second highest safety in the NFL last year behind Harrison Smith's incredible year. Joined at safety by Eddie Jackson. He's out of Alabama, graded out as 77.1 as a rookie last season. We got him in the 4th round. Hell of a steal, hell of a grade. Solid in the back end of that defense. Even though there was some turnover at the head coach position, like I mentioned, the Bears defense returned to the same coordinator and 9 starters. One issue that may carry over from last year, did not force many turnovers in 2017. Perhaps they could use a turnover chain, maybe a turnover trash can, spark some turnovers in 2018. One last note about this defense, finished number 30 in health in 2017. Fangio, like I mentioned, did a great job. even though he still faced the number one toughest schedule of offenses, in addition to the Bears facing the number one toughest schedule overall. Taking a look at that over-under, 5.5. The Everyone Gets a Trophy podcast, official position on this is hammer the over. We love the over. We love this Bears team. Are we taking a risk? Yes, but like I said in the intro, our balls have dropped. We're going big. Bears, 10-6, pushing the Green Bay Packers as NFC North champions. Could come down to a tiebreaker, could win the division, could be a wild card. We see playoff potential in this team all over. 10-6, hit the over. On to the next one. And with that, the Minnesota Vikings, coming off a 13-3 season in 2017, one game away from playing in their own stadium in the Super Bowl. Vikings are a very good team, very good players everywhere. However, the issue is depth. Not much depth going into 2018. Mike Zimmer, fun fact, 44-23 against the spread as a head coach. The books here just haven't caught up to how good of a head coach he is. Minnesota's going to be a heavy favorite in early 2018. Could see that record come back down to average. They lost Pat Shurmur as the offensive coordinator. He's now the head coach of the New York Football Giants. He's replaced by John DeFilippo from the Philadelphia Eagles, who's making the jump from the quarterback coach, where he had success with Carson Wentz and Nick Foles. However, not as much success the last time he was the offensive coordinator with the Browns in 2015 during the Johnny football era, where Johnny and Josh McCown finished the year 27th in offense, 27th in pass, 20th in run. Not a great year. The big story in the offseason was spending spree the Vikings went on, bringing in Kirk Cousins. Not very often do you see a quarterback with that kind of talent at age 29 become a free agent. Vikings pop 3 years, $80 million for a guy. He's never thrown 30 touchdowns, never won a playoff game. Vikings making that big time commitment. Vikings been looking for that franchise quarterback for a long time. The Browns are often the team that's a running joke trying to find that franchise quarterback, but the Vikings run of signal callers is becoming a running meme as well. Go back to the MVP Dante Culpepper. What's happened since then? Brad Johnson, Tavares Jackson, Kelly Holcomb, Brooks Bollinger, Gus Frerotte, Brett Favre, Joe Webb, Christian Ponder, Donovan McNabb, Matt Castle, Josh Freeman, Teddy Bridgewater, Sam Bradford, Sean Hill, Case Keenum, Kirk Cousins. Here we go. Is this the guy? We'll find out. The end result, you spend big money on Kirk Cousins, whose guy's best success has come under offensive masterminds Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay. There's a lot of questions. Could he just be a system quarterback? Kirk let us down twice in 17 and must-win games down the stretch. We'll see what he brings to Minnesota. Looking at the parts around him, they're 25th in spending at wide receiver, but they're lucky here. They have a ton of talent coming in for cheap. This ahead of the Stephon Diggs extension that's going to kick in 2019, jump that salary from $5 million to $12 million. Offensive line, they're spending 27th. However, this is indicative of a weaker spot on the squad. The 2017 Vikings saw Case Keenum unbelievable under pressure, plus 6.8% DVOA under pressure. He's very mobile inside the pocket. He's able to create time for the wide receivers to potentially get open. You compare that to Kirk Cousins in the same situations, negative 55.8%. He was the number 18th in the league under pressure. Kirk's leaving a less than ideal situation in Washington for another less than ideal offensive line situation in Minnesota. If the Vikings are hoping to see the same kind of success from the offense they saw in 2017, Kirk is going to need to be able to improve under pressure. Behind him, Dalvin Cook's back, coming off that ACL tear. Still has a lot to prove. A lot of hype in 2017. He had 127 yards versus the Saints on opening night, 64 yards against the Steelers, 97 against the Bucs, 67 against the Lions. He's young. He needs to prove he can stay healthy. He's backed up by Latavius Murray, a solid year as a power back last year in Dalvin Cook's absence. The rest of the depth, however, a bunch of undrafted free agents. Critical that Dalvin Cook stays healthy with the lack of depth for the sake of the Vikings. Back to wide receiver, I mentioned they had some talent there. Of course, we all know Stephon Diggs' career year. He saved them in the playoffs with that unbelievable walk-off touchdown. Opposite him, Adam Thielen. He's got the big-time stats. Both guys caught more contested balls than anyone else last year in the NFL. Helped Case Keenum make up for that offensive line play. Considering they have a better quarterback in 2018, these numbers should hold up, if not improve. Behind them, they have Laquan Treadwell entering year 3. We've outlined it countless times on our previews. This is the time to make the jump for Laquan entering that year 3 season. They've signed Kendall Wright, a guy we have seen have a 1,000-yard receiving season. Can he produce in the right system? Maybe a nice addition there. On the tight end, Kyle Rudolph could become this year's top fantasy football tight end. Kirk Cousins has fallen in love with the big target, and Joe DiFilippo was behind Gary Barnage's career season when he was coordinating in Cleveland. Kyle Rudolph finished only behind Jimmy Graham last season in touchdowns for a tight end. Expect a career year for Kyle. Now let's talk about the offensive line. Going into 2018, Pro Football Focus has them ranked number 28, and they struggle in pass protection. Unfortunately, dealing with the tragic loss of offensive line coach Tony Sparano, they named co-offensive line coaches to take his place with tight end coach Clancy Barone and assistant offensive line coach Andrew Giannacco. They're going to split the offensive line coaching duties. They have their work cut out for them. It's going to be the same line as last year. Left tackle Ryan Reef, left guard Nick Easton, Pat Elflein at center, Mike Remmers at right guard, and Rashad Hill at right tackle. All these guys graded out in the 40s on Pro Football Focus with the exception of Mike Remmers. He was a 69.6. He's in a walking boot right now, so hopefully he can get through that injury. We literally bet against this guy in Super Bowl 50 when we took Von Miller to have his way with him. He has played better at guard for the Vikings, but we have seen him have his issues. Vikings drafted Brian O'Neill in the second round out of Pitt. Scouts said he wasn't ready for the NFL. We'll see if he can prove them wrong and maybe make the jump in 2018. Flipping over to the defensive side of the ball, a lot of stars, not a lot of depth. They're number 9 in the pass rush, according to Pro Football Focus. They've got a stacked line, but we won't see that same kind of rotation that we love from teams maybe like the Eagles. Everson Griffin carried a solid 2016 over, started off hot in 2017, graded out as 89.2. Hell of a pass rusher. They signed Daniel Hunter to a long-term deal, above average, potential's there, he's still a young guy. Brian Robinson's there that can sub them out. He drafted Jalen Holmes out of Ohio State, a guy that absolutely looks the part, but he's been a casualty of the rotations at Ohio State, oftentimes being subbed out. Inside, Linval Joseph, very good year, 88.7 at defensive tackle. Next to him, the Vikings lost Tom Johnson. No big deal. Add Sheldon Richardson, who comes over from Seattle, graded out as 83.8 last year, but you put him next to Linval Joseph, that's a lot to guard inside, should open up holes for linebackers. Speaking of linebackers, Anthony Barr grades out 71.4, Eric Kendricks 75.1, and Ben Gideon all very average. Gideon 76.2. He's the best grade, which was odd. He played the fewest snaps last season, coming off in nickel sets. Anthony Barr is a fast linebacker. He's solid in coverage, and Kendricks is the run stopper. They should have some room to work with that defensive line opening up holes. Back to defensive backs is a team that does not miss tackles. Number 2 in the NFL last year, Pro Football Focus ranks them the number 6 secondary going into 2018. Led by Xavier Rhodes. Is he a lockdown corner? Well, sometimes yes, other times no. He graded out an 80.2, which is above average, but we know he has that talent to lock down. Opposite him is Trey Waynes. Struggled last year. He's a former first round who's inconsistent. Behind him, Terrence Newman, who seems to get better with age, enters this season week 1 at age 40, might be playing the mentor role in this team. They also drafted Mike Hughes out of Central Florida in the first round. He was Pro Football Focus favor in the draft, could take over opposite of Jones. The main event, playing safety Harrison Smith, number 1 safety in the NFL, graded out an insane 97.0, had a magical, special 2017. He does it all. Stops you in coverage, can stop the run. It's almost too much to ask this guy to replicate the Defensive Player of the Year performance he had last year. Still should be great. Opposite Smith, Andrew Zendejo had a career year, graded as 86.8. We all saw the impact of Zendejo in the playoffs when he was concussed in the game against the Saints and left with a 13-0 lead, and suddenly they were down 24-23 before the Vikings had that miracle finish. This is a team in 2017 that was ranked number 1 in overall health. Since 2002, only the Kansas City Chiefs in 2006 has a defense finished number 1 in health 2 years in a row. Law of averages bite the Vikings in 2018. They don't have the depth to withstand many injuries. They're returning 10 of 11 starters, but even that 11th guy was an upgraded defensive tackle, so there's a lot of potential here, especially at home. This team can be an unbelievable defense that can just shut out offenses any week. The over-under's 10. We mentioned we did the Bills preview. About half the teams year over year do not return to the playoffs. We are projecting a 9-7 record for the Vikings in 2018, meaning they do not make the playoffs, in large part due to a tough schedule. They open against the 49ers, travel to Green Bay, home against the Bills, and then go to LA to face the Rams, then go to Philadelphia to face the Eagles. Maybe a revenge game there, we'll see. Schedule levels off until the bye, but then after that, in Chicago versus the Packers, at the New England Patriots, and then again crossing the country to face the Seahawks in Seattle. That's twice this season. They have to play great teams on the road, back-to-back weeks on different sides of the country. Not ideal for the Minnesota Vikings. It's a very talented team, but you're really asking a lot to bring in a new offensive coordinator and a new quarterback and expect them to pick up where they left off. On defense, it's still asking a lot to stay healthy. They don't have the depth to replace the talent should there be injuries. And again, as we mentioned in the open, Mike Zimmer, amazing versus the spread. 44-23. We could probably expect that to return to normal this season, especially with the Vikings being big favorites early on. Minnesota Vikings, 9-7, moving on. The Detroit Lions finished 2017 with a 9-7 record. That's the same record they had in 2006, but unlike the previous year, they failed to qualify for the playoffs. In 2018, it's not the Patriot way, no, it's the Lion way. General Manager Bob Quinn heads into year 3 as the Lions GM, joined the Lions in 2016 after previously working for, that's right, the New England Patriots. He was the director of pro scouting when the Lions decided they would buy what the Patriots were selling and scoop Bob Quinn to be their general manager. Quinn finished above 500 in his first 2 seasons and finally has his coach. Jim Caldwell's out after a tenure of mediocrity. He was above 500 in 3 of 4 seasons, always in playoff conversations, but never became that Super Bowl contender that Detroit so desperately wants. Caldwell finished 36-28, went to the playoffs twice, but always had trouble beating the winning teams, going 2-12 over his last 2 years. Long term, going 8-61 the last 69 times they faced a team with a winning record. Moving forward, Quinn went right back to that well in Foxborough and brought in their defensive coordinator, Matt Patricia. Patricia leaves the Patriots after working in several roles since 2004. Looking at the disciples of Bill Belichick and the guys that have gone on to get head coaching jobs in the NFL, there's not been a lot of success. Josh McDaniels, Romeo Crennel, Eric Mangini, Jim Schwartz, and even this gentleman named Nick Saban all finished below 500 in their tenures as NFL head coaches. Bill O'Brien's still the head coach in Houston. He's sporting a 31-33 record in 4 seasons, so if things go south in Texas, he may join that list. The question here will be, can Matt Patricia finally be the guy who breaks out on his own and has some success? Matt's first move was keeping the offensive coordinator Jim Bob Cooter. The Lions had success under JBC. He and Matt Stafford seemed to click well. We like that move. Ran the defenses, Patricia hired Paul Pasqualoni. He's had too many jobs to name. Most recently, he was the defensive line coach for Boston College. He does have defensive coordinator experience. He was the Dolphins defensive coordinator from 2008 2009. Although he may not be calling the plays this year, Matt Patricia could choose to run the defense his way. We do know he's a smart guy. Holds a bachelor's degree in aeronautical engineering, aka he's literally a rocket scientist. The biggest question for the Everyone Gets a Trophy podcast, and more specifically super producer Howard, will Matt Patricia continue to sport the backwards hat now that he's the head honcho? We'll find out very soon. At quarterback, Matt Stafford's still there. As we mentioned earlier with the records versus winning teams, Matt Stafford falls a victim to that, going 6-52 versus teams with a winning record. The Matt Stafford story is pretty simple the last few years. He seems to always have to play from behind. He broke a record in 2016 with the most fourth quarter comebacks with 8. Yes, 8 fourth quarter comebacks. 2017, he proved he was human, however, went 1-5 in those same opportunities. It's hard to bash a guy who's been doing it all alone. Matt Stafford, solid piece of quarterback. Looking at running backs, hopefully this helps Matt Stafford more than he's ever been used to in his entire career. The Lions enter 2018 5th in cap spending at running back. They're trying to surround Matt with a solid run game. They drafted Kerryon Johnson in the 2nd round out of Auburn. He's a solid runner who's in running to start. He struggled in 3rd down in college. May not be the 3-down back that they're hoping out of the gate. In 3 college seasons, he only caught 32 balls. So he's going to need to get out there and work on that part of his game. But otherwise, he's a big downhill runner, strong guy. And speaking of big and strong guys, the Lions went out and brought in LeGarrette Blount from the Eagles, and before that, the Patriots. At this point in his career, LeGarrette's been passed around the NFL like the Blount he is. The importance of Blount cannot be understated. Last year, Detroit failed on 22 third and short attempts. Yes, failed. And that cost them close games in 2017. They finished 9-7, inches away from 10-6. If everyone goes back, let me take you back to week 3, 2017. It's a nice, crisp September afternoon. The Lions are playing the Falcons. They're trailing, moving towards the end zone. Matt Stafford passes to Golden Tate, reaches out, and scores! Lions win, but upon further review, it appears that Tate did not, in fact, score. We'll get an automatic runoff of the clock. Game over. Falcons win. Falcons go on to go 10-6 and make the playoffs. Literally a game of inches. That's why we love football. Golden Tate reaches a little bit further. Maybe the Lions finish 10-6 instead. Maybe the Lions go to the playoffs instead. Maybe the Lions have a parade instead. I doubt that, but just maybe. So they finished 9-7, going next level. 9-7 teams make the playoffs 45.9% of the time. You win that 10th game, finish 10-6, you go to the playoffs 80.6 times, almost double. So all that from 1 inch. Close games and third and shorts are a big deal in the NFL, and they can ultimately decide if you're continuing to play games into January. LeGarrette Blount will be huge. We're entering year 10 of the Lions trying to find Stafford a run game. This is a Lions team. Get ready for this. You sitting down? Hopefully everyone's sitting down. The Lions haven't had a 100-yard rusher since Reggie Bush back in November 2013. 68 straight games without a 100-yard rusher, 4 away from tying the 1960 Redskins record. Get them a running back. Doesn't even need to be a single guy that goes for 100 yards. The Lions can be successful with a running back by committee, and it appears they've done so with the first 2 names we mentioned. Also added to that is Amir Abdullah and Theo Riddick, who will likely be the third down shotgun back. Maybe this is all Matt Stafford needs to get over that hump. Outside Detroit, still trying to fill a huge void Megatron left when he retired too early. Time's a flat circle for these poor Detroit fans. They've lost superstars far too early on their career. First Barry Sanders, most recently Calvin Johnson. Now it's time to try to replace them. They've done a good job in free agency, helping to fill that void, signing Marvin Jones and Golden Tate, and drafted TJ Jones and Kenny Golladay. The Lions had 2 1,000-yard receivers last year. Marvin Jones, 1,101 yards, 9 touchdowns, and Golden Tate, 1,003 yards and 5 touchdowns playing in the slot. Kenny Golladay looked the part in preseason and into week 1, but injuries slowed his rookie campaign. TJ Jones tried to fill the void, but clearly he's more of a number 4 option. Altogether, a very talented group for Matt Stafford going into 2018. The Lions lost Eric Ebron as tight end, but they bring in Luke Wilson. Solid hands, but we haven't seen him under the demand of a primary pass catcher in his career. In 5 years, he's only got 89 catches, 1,129 yards, and 11 touchdowns. Sounds like a lot, but average that out per year, we're talking 18 catches, 225 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Time for him to make that jump. Sign Levin Toilolo from the Falcons. 6'8", 260 pounds, hasn't produced much as a receiver. This will be something to look out for in 2018. Moving on to the offensive line, Pro Football Focus ranks at the number 8 line going into 2018. Great pass protection, but poor run blocking. Grading last in DVOA, adjusted 9 yards, meaning they struggle to open holes. Still a good pass blocking line. To fix the blocking issues, they went out and drafted Frank Ragnow out of Arkansas in the first round. He graded out the top center in the draft, a hard-nosed guy who should help improve the running game. Taylor Decker's back, who didn't grade out well, but he's coming off injury. There's potential there. Glasnow at center, who's average. TJ Lang in year 2. Ricky Wagner year 2 with the Lions, very above average. This group didn't work much together in 2017, so it has the feel of a new line going into 2018. Pro Football Focus loves them. Super producer Howard loves them. So in turn, I love them. Hopefully these running backs can be the final pieces Matt Stafford needs to succeed. Defense, Matt Patricia's at the helm. Will he bring that bend but don't break approach we saw in New England with him? Something to look out for. The pass rush, not great. Number 24, according to Pro Football Focus in 2018. Brings Ziggy Ansah back, who's good when healthy, but he's been inconsistent. The good news for Lions fans is he enters a contract year, so motivation will not be an issue. Ziggy had 12 sacks last year, however, 9 came in 3 games. Likely a bit inflated by playing some poor teams. On the other side, Kerry Hyder showed flashes of promise in 2016. Pro Football Focus graded him 77.5, however, didn't play last year coming off an injury. We'll see if he can create pressure on the other side. Anthony Zettel was fine in 2017. Drafted Deshaun Hand out of Alabama. Fun fact, once upon a time, Deshaun Hand, number 1 prospect out of high school. Even had a documentary called First and 17. Go check it out if you want more info on him. Ultimately didn't live up to promise at Alabama. Fell to the 4th round. Will be part of the rotation of pass rushers for the Detroit Lions. Inside, Ashawn Robinson and Jeremiah Ledbetter are back. They add Sylvester Williams from Tennessee. Before that, he was on the Broncos. Lions hoping they get that guy who was on a Super Bowl winning team in defense for the Broncos. Behind that line, they signed Devon Kennard, came from the Giants, not great. Christian Jones from Chicago, who's coming off a poor 2017. 2017 first rounder Gerard Davis is in the middle calling plays. He looked like a rookie in 2017. It's tough for rookie linebackers to really make an impact, but now it's time to make that jump. He could potentially be the guy Patricia looks to be that Dante Hightower role playing middle linebacker. The highlight of this defense, at defensive back, big play Slay, Darius Slay, tied for league interceptions with 8. Number 12, according to Pro Football Focus. He follows and covers the number 1 receiver and does a good job. If you look at the pass rating of quarterbacks when throwing at Slay, it's 55.6, and Pro Football Focus graded him 88.1. For a guy covering number 1 receivers and following all over the field, these are phenomenal numbers, and he'll look to continue that in 2018. Unfortunately, opposite of Slay, there are questions. Tease Tabor projects to be the guy. He was a second rounder in 2017. Not a great rookie year, but he's going to be given every chance to play. Could also be Nevin Lawson, but he may be best suited to play slot corner We'll see how he plays in camp. Lions still do have Quandre Diggs, played an average corner in 2017, moved to safety late in the year due to injuries. We'll see where he fits in. Speaking of safety, Glover Quinn, another bright spot in the secondary, rated the number 4 safety by Pro Football Focus, graded out 89.0, very good. Tavon Wilson will start opposite him, a former New England Patriot. Hopefully he can stay healthy this year. As we mentioned on the Patriots preview, they're a bend but don't break defense who knew when to dial up the blitzes, but also knew how to get pressure with minimal attackers. We'll see if Patricia is able to deploy that with the Lions. The over-under set at 6.5. After back-to-back 9-7 seasons, we have them going 7-9. Maybe not the playoffs in year one, but there's going to be a ton to build on for the future. Lions 7-9 in 2018. And that wraps up the NFC North. If you're not already doing so, follow us on Twitter at Trophy Podcast. Once again, thank you to super producer Howard at NFL_DVOA_picks. We're on iTunes. We're on YouTube now. Check us out. All links can be found on theyuppyinzer.com. We once again thank you for listening. We'll be back soon previewing the AFC North. Lots in store. Won't be spending time trashing the Browns. We're going to be talking about the future of the Browns and the future of the AFC North. Until next time, folks, have a day.